Let's hit it.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori La Bey, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation, as usual, as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori La Bey, and I know you're going to enjoy the show today. This is just such an incredible story that we're going to be talking about. There are some fabulous, fabulous books on the market now, and I can't wait to introduce you to the founder and creator of this series. They are one of the best things that I have seen in terms of how she has put them together and designed them. So for those of you that are new to the show, I'm Lori La Bey. My mom had dementia for 30 years, and I just think it is so critical for us to connect to resources, products, and tools. And so Alzheimer Speaks on all of our platforms is about raising everyone's voice. Everyone is welcome here. We need to share these resources. You know, that's the lifeblood to hold us together. That's the glue with all of this. So please share this show with your friends and family members because it will give them insights. And maybe, just maybe, it'll give you some ideas of how you can contribute to the world of dementia and help the next person's life be a little bit easier. We had our opening music. It's called Clarion Call. I always like to give the Mark Arneson Band a shout out. They're just an amazing group and had offered that song up to us to use, and I just think it's so uplifting. You can go ahead and download that on any of your favorite music platforms if you'd like, and just honor the band for the work that they do and contributed to the world of dementia as well. Now, before we get started, I always like to shout out to a couple of organizations, so I want to do that right now. The Memory Cafe Directory is a fantastic group and a ton of resources for actually 5 different countries. They have gathered where all the memory cafes are. And, you know, right now during COVID, they're not meeting in person. And so you can participate in a Memory Cafe online by going to Memory Cafe Directory and then click on Cafe Connect. I personally do 2 with Arthur's Senior Living on the 2nd and 4th Wednesday of the month at 1 o'clock Central Time, and anybody is more than welcome to join us. Just reach out to me and I will get you that information. I also want to point out Dementia Map, a global resource directory, which we just developed and launched right before the holidays, which is growing every single day. Great resources, products, and tools that you can access there. And if you're a provider and want to participate, again, just reach out to me. I'd be more than glad to get you information. Budget is not an issue. We wanted to make sure everybody could have a place on Dementia Map. And then Choral Health is still allowing people to download 2 of their music apps for free during COVID. One is Music First, and the other is Choral Faith. And you can go to Choral, that's C-O-R-O, health.com. We're going to hear from the Footbar Walker, and then I get to introduce you to Nana's books.
Introducing the life-changing Footbar Walker.
I'm Peggy from Danville, Kentucky, and I'm 91 years old. The Footbar Walker revolutionized my care of George. It absolutely benefits the patient and the caregiver both, and that's the beauty of it. It's so easy to use. It folds up just like a dream. I got it in and out of the car without any effort at all. The saving that I made from having to put him in a nursing home came to about $192,000.
Does someone you love use a walker? Do they struggle to get up from a seated position? Are you a caregiver dealing with physical pain and stress as you help your patient? The Footbar Walker was designed to assist not only the patient, but also the caregiver. Patients have more control standing up, and no lifting from the caregiver is required. See how it works at at thefootbarwalker.com. That's thefootbarwalker.com. Peggy, would you recommend the Footbar Walker?
Do I ever? I would not be in the health that I'm in today at this age had it not been for the Footbar Walker.
I'm so excited to introduce you to Laurette Klier. She is a certified dementia practitioner and a senior advocate. She's the creator of Nana's books, and she has consciously created just this treasure trove of large format, nostalgic, fine art and literature designed to meet the needs of people experiencing brain changes. And they're also just fantastic tools for any care partner, family or professional. So welcome, Laurette. I am so excited to have you on this show today because I cannot believe what you have developed. It's amazing, and I can't wait to share it with everyone. So thank you so much for taking time to be with us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Lori. I really appreciate your interest in Nana's books, and I thank you for having me here.
Well, before I start with any of the line of questionings, I always ask all my guests the same questions, and that is, have you been personally touched by dementia in your own family or circle of friends?
Yes, absolutely. So my mother-in-law actually passed 2 days ago. She lived with Lewy body dementia for, I'd say, it built, but, I'd say for 6 or 7 years. And my product line is born of necessity. It was something that I developed for her specifically. And as an educator, I realized that high interest materials, developmentally appropriate materials, and things that are really targeted to people's sense of identity and nostalgia, I thought can't miss. So really inspired by my mother-in-law, hence the name of the series, Nana's Books.
Wonderful. And so sorry for your loss. I just want to mention that. But, she'll live on forever through these books and be helping so many people. It's just incredible. That's kind of how I feel with Alzheimer Speaks, too. That's an extension of my experience through dementia. And it's really amazing how many people step up and step out to help others, during this experience. I think each and every one of us have learned things that we can share, if we take the time and the energy to do that. So, and I know it takes a lot of time and a lot of energy. So thank you. I want to ask you in a little bit more detail on how you came up with the idea for the book series. And your inspiration was definitely your mother-in-law, but where did that come from, in terms of an engagement piece? Were you just feeling lost and that she needed something that just wasn't out there? Or do you find that there's other competitors? I haven't seen anything to the extent that you've done, I'll be honest, in the area of books and reminiscing to the fashion you've put them together.
I would go visit my mother-in-law initially in assisted living, and then she moved up to the memory care floor. And wonderful place. And I could see that she'd get the Boston Globe and it would remain wrapped up in plastic by her door. And that was just a point of pride with her. She'd like to get up in the morning, read her Boston Globe with her morning coffee, and she'd read the Patriot Ledger. She grew up in South Boston, but was raising her family on the South Shore of Massachusetts. I knew she loved to read her Mary Higgins Clark, and she enjoyed reading and still enjoyed reading, but I felt that it was limiting her. The dementia was because there was too much text. The newspaper itself was too cumbersome. The news was too upsetting. There was just too much to make it approachable to her, and she needed something that was formatted in such a way that she could still partake and it wasn't daunting to her. So I thought, maybe let's do something, because I was a teacher and I was always looking to welcome new readers into the process, whole language, reading, writing, and speaking. So I thought, what could I do to get her? My teacher brain went on back and under the whole language umbrella. And I thought, you know what? Why not nostalgia? Why not nostalgic poetry? Why not fine art that, when you're in an assisted living facility or you're in memory care, you're essentially in a locked unit for your protection. And the sad part about that is that if you love nature and you love museums and you just love fine art, and you don't have that agency anymore to pick up and go to these places and do these things and see these magnificent sights anymore, And with COVID, even library cart, if that was your salvation, doesn't come around to your room anymore. And I just thought, something's got to change. There has to be something that I can bring in that's not Sudoku or word searches or puzzles or things like of that nature. I thought she really does like story, and she really does like language, and she really does love beautiful things. So how can I do that? And then I got requests from veterans. Oh, we have a veteran that, he'd love to see some of these types of things again. And I thought, oh, wouldn't it be great to honor our vets, because there's a really underserved population. I used to write grants for underserved populations, and then off to the races.
When you mentioned the newspaper and the sense of pride, my mom always had to have the paper too. I mean, it was part of her routine, and she would get up and she would hold it. And I'll never forget, one day I walked into the nursing home and she was holding it upside down. Yeah. And people were, had walked by previously and they were laughing at her because she held it upside down. And I remember approaching her, and I didn't want her to lose her dignity at all. And so I just said, Mom, can I see the paper? There's something on there. And I'll give it right back. And then I looked and I turned it around and I gave it to her the right way. Instead of saying, oh, you can't even read, and blah, 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 because sometimes people get really scolding with that stuff. But it really, truly was so important for her to be able to have access and feel normal. Your books are, like I said, they're just amazing. I want you to talk a little bit before we get into the books themselves, but the how and the why you structured the books, and if they vary in the series. And I know you've got a few more even in the hopper, but you started this during COVID, and I just cannot believe what you've produced. I mean, you must just be channeled directly from the heavens to get all this stuff pushed out, because it really is incredible.
Well, thank you. It is coming right through me. I don't know. I don't really know how that's exactly happening. I stay up some nights till like 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning when the house is quiet. I have teens, so you know what that's like. But to circle back to your mom, to answer your question, her dignity, her identity, her retained, cognition, well, all of the things that made her, that comes into question when you have dementia. And it's just such a, dispiriting time for the person living with dementia. And I thought, why can't we bring something that's great, that's formatted for them appropriately, so that it's large font for people with low vision. It's a sans serif font, which is the most simple, clearly delineated font. Let's do less text on the page. Every book is predictably formatted so that the text is always on one side and the artwork is always on the other. And it's not threatening, because you can either read it aloud to someone who, let's say, is further along. Let's say people that like to read, like my mother-in-law did initially, and actually she did right till the end. She could pick it up and read it and enjoy it herself. Let's say when she was alone, she could have a few on her coffee table or on her bedside table. And then people that are, as Teepa Snow says, pearls, which are people that are in end stage dementia that are, let's say, bedridden, and they're nonverbal, of course, non-ambulatory, but they can really hear you and they understand, and they are really looking to connect and still be part of the human community. And because they have aphasia, and because that part of their brain isn't working, that they can speak, that doesn't mean they're not there. So they really do like the poetry. And that was what I started with, because I think the melodic nature of poetry is like music. And we know how effective music is with people living with dementia. It really there's a part of your amygdala that regulates your emotion, and people argue that that's the seat of your soul. And if you can recite some of these beautiful poems that people recall from the canon of American and British, literature that we all recall from childhood, prayers and poems and hymns, and I've got all of that, gospel, all types of different books. That is bringing a gift in. And there are only so many times you can go with a big box of Puffs Plus and the little flower arrangement. Or my mother-in-law loved her cold pizza. We'd bring her a cold pizza. We'd get the pizza, and by the time she got it, she liked to sit there, and we would literally chew the fat, because she'd sit there chewing the cold pizza. and I'd read aloud to her. But it helped her maintain her dignity, because all you have to do really is look at the pictures, and you can point things out and take a picture walk. So that's non-threatening, and that's positive, and that's a shared experience. And sometimes the text and the images, we got so far afield with it, we would just chat and chat and chat, because it was very generative. It would generate some really cool conversations. And I learned things about her in this window of time that I would never have learned about her prior to her walking this walk with Lewy body dementia. So I really see the gift in it. I see the gift in that time, and I wanted to make it as, rich and textured as I could. And that's pretty much what we did.
Yeah, you really, really did. And I love the large font. I love the consistency of, where the text is versus where the photography is and the artwork. And it's so varied in these books. I mean, it just really is. Each book is very inclusive. It's non-threatening. When you talked about poetry, I just interviewed Susan Zimmerman, who is a national speaker friend of mine, and she just produced this book, a beautiful book of poems and pictures for loss called Rays of Hope. And she was talking, and she's also a financial planner and a therapist, kind of a strange combination, but she talked about the importance of the rhythm of poems and what it does to our brains, just like you were saying. And so many people don't understand. They've come to accept that music is really powerful. Mm-hmm. But we need to push that with our words and with prose, and get people to understand that can be just as powerful as well to so many people. And so I'm really, really, really glad that you brought that up. You want to give us an example of one of your books? We'll just kind of, if you want to grab one and
sure.
and
I've got a whole bunch here. Sure.
Yeah.
And back to your point, when you're a caregiver, typically caregivers are women, and, that are sandwiched in between school-age children or the workplace, and then after work going and seeing a loved one in care and all that. So you don't have the time or the mental energy or the wherewithal to go back and say, wow, I love that Wordsworth poem, or I loved Robert Frost, or any of the classics. And then you've got to pick ones that aren't, around death or around anything upsetting, or aren't around anything that would bring back a sad memory or something like that. So this way it's all vetted, it's all happy and positive, or just a window into simpler times. Some have to do with crossroads and passages, and they're not all, sweetness and light, but they are, they're not going to upset or, confuse anyone. And I really did the first set of poems. So that brings me to the first book around sundowning. So the name of the book is Sit With Me at Sundown. And this series of, these are the poetry books. So poetry is meant to soothe. So the Sit With Me at Sundown series is poetry to, as I said, to read yourself, or to have a loved one read to you. So let's say you're in care and you don't know your caregiver, or you don't remember your caregiver, or it's, there are staff changes and so forth. This is a great opportunity to sit down with somebody and get to know them, because you can reflect together on the poetry. And again, this one's called Life's Journeys, as you can see down here, and it focuses on the journey of life. So for example, as I said earlier, like Frost's poem, The Road Not Taken. So and there's a woman on the road, and it's obviously the autumn. So again, if it was too challenging, you could read it aloud to your person. Sometimes, like my mother-in-law could read it to herself, and she could think about the choices that you made in life and what brought you where you are and how you ended up, where you did in life. And then you can also take a look at the scene, and every image, I really tried, Lori, to choose an image that really helps people to enter into another realm of sorts, where it's not just a simple image, let's say a wheelbarrow and a label where it says what the item is. It really does bring you into, what's happening. And like this is called Wayside Flowers, and this is an image of Surrey in England. And it just talks about the flowers that you did or didn't pick along the way, and the choices that you made. And, there could be some ennui or some feelings of, not necessarily regret or feelings of triumph and change. It's just what we've all been through. And then, pictures that have, children and adults and people that are, the aged, people that are, on the road of life that are having the experience, and the images are all in the public domain, and they're all vetted by an intellectual property attorney and really carefully selected to not just be, usable for these purposes, but so that they really do mesh with the image, meshes with the language, and creates a real cohesive whole that this is true. And this is just a lot of people say this in a eulogy, and it essentially says that if you're pure of heart, you can't go wrong.
Yep.
And just, again, these beautiful artworks that people wouldn't see again because they are in care. And then, for example, this is another one. This is another Sit With Me at Sundown book. Poetry as well, but this one's devotional. And this one says Poems of Faith. So, and it's devotional poetry for the young at heart, as opposed to nostalgic poetry for the young at heart. So again, visually consistent. So if you see this on the table in care, people can recognize and say, oh, I like those books. Or my mom likes those books. So these are poems that are, I love the light in this. They're faith-based, but they're non-denominational, and they are based in hymns and, again, have the melodic cadence, which people really like and that they want to hear again and again. And it really does soothe them. I have seen many times when I'm reading aloud, I'll look around the room and there'll be, heads put back a little bit, and then just eyes closed, and some tears will roll, but it's like happy tears. And this is joyful. For the care, you can see who the artist is, and you can see who the writer is. So you can say, oh, I think I recall that. And then all my life long. So these are a little bit, some of the images, and I intersperse dark and light and just beautiful valleys and rivers and children and their grown-ups. So that's a Sit With Me at Sundown series. And what I did was while we're on the poetry, I brought that to the veterans, and that's the same layout and the same general idea, but these are specific poems and songs to the 5 branches of the U.S. military, and to honor the service of our military veterans that are living in care. So people at Walter Reed or people that are in any of the veterans' homes, just real, true patriotism, beautiful images, and just to really honor their time in service, the sacrifices that they and their families have made. And there's just truly nothing out there like this for veterans. There's not a blessed thing that you could say, oh, I'm going to pick that up and bring that to them in the library or at a bookstore. There's nothing like that. So as you can see, all the different branches of the military are represented. And I just really feel such immense gratitude, connection with our veterans and people that have served, because, at times, divisive times like an election and the things that have gone on, at our core, this is what it's about.
Yep.
These are the positive and good things. And again, so that kind of morphed from the poetry into, I did a whole series. I'll kind of go quickly through that for veterans. So let's say that was a little bit cumbersome and that was more text than you might want. You could do this one, which is Psalms, but again, simple, non-denominational, and they're just very simple, narrative statements about the time, the sacrifice, the passages, families, and really love of country. So this is the Psalms. And then as you can see the series, so that little series is on the back of these 3 books. And then this book is perhaps the simplest of all. And this is a picture book. So it's a picture book. And again, I tried not to repeat images. So every book, if you bought all 3, you'd have fresh images. Mm-hmm. And you'd see these aphorisms that are by, like, for example, like Harry Ward Beecher. Okay. And they're raising the flag and so forth. So that's kind of, and again, every page, there's something new and can be enjoyed again and again. And oftentimes with dementia, for the person, it's a new experience every time, or some people have different recall and, approach it differently each time. To continue on that vein, or just to kind of maybe get off of that topic for a little bit, I had to borrow this book back from one of my friends because I'd given all of mine out and St. Patrick's Day is coming. So this is The Wit and Wisdom of Ireland, which I think is very campy. And I did this specifically for my mother-in-law because she grew up in South Boston in a predominantly or very, very Irish neighborhood. And these are just very witty sayings that I love this little girl with a pipe. And just things that people come up with. Like, for example, you can't make a racehorse out of a donkey. So you can talk about that, about, hey, you're going to be what you're going to be. Not a lot, or 'tis afterwards that everything is understood. So like a young couple.
The truth, yeah.
It is so true. And then, but again, and just, words of wisdom, when you're not fishing, be mending the nets. So there are a real variety in the books of, this is actually Mother Jones, who was, but you wouldn't know that. But truth stands when everything else fails. And a lot of these, sometimes they reach somebody that they can identify with some of these sayings, and they're like, that's what they stand for too. May all your troubles be little ones. So everyone's got that connection to, the universals, bringing home baby, the empty nest, being part of a new couple, any of those things. So that's really what I focus on, because it doesn't matter where you grew up or what your experience was. These are all things that we can relate to as part of, as I said before, the human community. So those are a few, and then let me know what else you might want to see.
Well, I like I said, I just adore these. I think they're so powerful on so many levels, and they're different than a lot of things that are out there. I think one, because of the size,
right.
And the pictures that you've drawn in are really, a lot of them very artistic and just powerful. And I think they can teach all generations about another generation as well, of things that they might not have missed, or, oh, I've never heard that before, or, what does that mean to you? And, how does that align with your philosophy of life, or how did that affect you? I mean, there's just so many different ways to pull stories, not just out of the person with dementia, but I mean, a true conversation between people as well, in terms of, how has this impacted you? And to get the care partner to think about certain things in life as well. Because I think sometimes as care partners, we get so busy being busy, oh, we're going to do this right now, boom, 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 but we're not taking it in. And I think your books draw both sides in, which is really, really cool. Really, really cool. So right now, how many are in the series, and how many do you have in the hopper?
So 13 in the series that are available on Amazon. 2 are a little bit held up. They're, because for institutional sales, they've been the most popular, which I when you go on Amazon and you look at all the different books, one is Nostalgic Book of Kittens. So it's all fine art, and it's kittens doing all kinds of different things. And there's some, there's some text that goes along with that. I thought, I'll just do this because I know people love it. Well, sure enough, that blew out. And then another one of the poetry, and it's Birds of a Feather. That's also part of the Sit With Me at Sundown series. It has a powder blue cover. My mother and father are on that cover, and that is gone because it's all birds. And, we know our seniors, we all do. We love to sit there and look at the feeders and look at the birds come and go and all the different species. I know where I am is really rural, and, I love to see the bird activity, but this is but again, the literature that goes with the artwork is really, it really talks about the times in your life, the times that we've all experienced, particularly when you're cresting the hill, right, in life. Mm-hmm. These are things to reflect on. And it's also great. I do have, my daughter Ingrid would go and see my mother-in-law. They were very, very close all the time. And these things are great, as you said, a great catalyst for conversation and a great means with which to connect. That I think was very helpful. They had plenty to chat about on their own, but when you've got someone who's got more confusion and got more, they're more challenged, and it's what they say, when you met someone with dementia, you've met one person with dementia, because there's so many different manifestations, and people are impacted to varying degrees. So, and it varies from day to day, right? One day she might be more lucid and more conversational, and one day she might be more reserved and more quiet and more in her own head. And that would be a day that this would be a good opportunity to take out one of these books. And because it's really difficult, I think, for the person that has dementia, it has to be so difficult when people say, how was lunch? Or what'd you do this morning? Or what'd you have for breakfast? Or those are all things in their short-term memory that they really have difficulty accessing. But if you can somehow bring them back to that sweet spot, they say between, let's say, 10 years and 30 years old, where you really do have total recall and you remember clear as day your first date, the county fair, or the day your daughter was born, or any of your high school graduation. And you can talk with real specificity about the Thanksgiving that you used to have at your great aunt's house in Armonk and, on the river, and what you brought and, what her specialties were. But it's much harder to recall the steps and the processes, let's say, procedural stuff to brush your teeth or whatever. So to capitalize on the ability, and that's, in habilitative therapy, we talk about what can this person still do? How can we help them to access it? How can we help them feel they're connected and that they have purpose and that their life has meaning? And how can we make that as authentic as possible? So these books help the younger generation, grandchildren, children, friends, to come in, and it kind of, I've gotten some feedback from people and they say, it's such a relief to me because when we have company, I kind of have to be the go-between and I have to kind of, ease the whole process. But when we can sit with the book, they've got a little something that they can talk about, and the caregiver can get a little bit of a break and leave the room because they can chat about some of these days past and some of these, beautiful moments, reclaimed.
Yeah.
So that,
I've been sitting in here while you were talking, just writing all these different topics, because I think your books could be endless. I mean, I could see one on dogs or just squirrels, because how many times do you just watch the squirrels at the feeders, trying to go after the bird feeders or farm animals, or
right.
fishing, or the holidays or birthdays, or even one for, a segment on police and fire and medical teachers, because
Right.
so often people go back to what they did, what was
Identity, right?
What was their industry,
Yeah.
life on the water, from, swimming and water skiing to, fishing. And those are all just fun moments that I think are just embedded, in all of us. Gardening, state fairs, all of those types of things are
Right.
just amazing moments, and to be able to show the variety, or even the style changes of the generations would be an interesting one too, to see how
Right.
things have changed. And so I think what you're doing here is absolutely endless and powerful, because there's so many things that can be grabbed and brought together, to give life and hope and engagement to, which is really, really very, very neat. So individuals and more commercial institutions can purchase the books. Do you have like any bulk rates?
Yes. So anybody, let's say, that wanted to put together a sampler or a package, let's say, depending on, let's say it was through Kiwanis, or, they wanted to give a bulk donation to a veterans home. They might choose the 3 veterans books and decide to do a certain number of units. And so I could put together a package for them. So all people would have to do is contact me. And then let's say I've got the ones that are faith-based. That's something that I've got, one of prayer, just to show you kind of the innards. You can see how on the wing, they're really just geared to, the pairings are so strong. It doesn't necessarily have to be any particular denomination. So let's say you've got a community that's a faith-based community, you can order, let's say, 4 of those books. To your point before about the endless opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's great. I think whatever comes into the marketplace is great. And I think that this community needs a selection just like we all do. What I think differentiates my books, and again, as I said, I did the kitten book and a bird book, and those are very popular themes.
Mm-hmm.
How I can say that mine are different is that As I said, there's an absolute scene that you enter into in each one. For example, like look at the cover of this one. These kids are through a window and they're singing Christmas carols, and you're entering a scene. Whereas most of the books that are out there are an item or something specific, and then something that it's either labeled or it's got a small amount of text. So that's the difference. And the difference is also that I really bring in nostalgia. Nostalgia is really the hook. I feel that that is, and it's so much variety, but it's you don't have to bring so much to it where it's a struggle to make conversation or it's a struggle to pick something out of the page. It's all there, so you can revisit that page again and again and again. So yes, there are countless opportunities out there, and I'm hoping to bring, for example, like for gospel, this is for anybody that likes gospel music and that likes the real standards, everything from, Over Jordan to Oh Shenandoah, or like here's Over Jordan with a beautiful image of a little boy on the lane. There are endless opportunities but again, to bring in photography, fine art, illustration that are, somewhat more whimsical. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Look at this beautiful girl. So, and again, you can see there are different types of art that are, that contained within the book, but thematically the standards are all there. And these can even be sung, with a small group. And again, photography.
What a smile on that one.
I know, it's beautiful. I know. It's the kind of thing where you really could just sit. I had experiences with my mother-in-law with the first book where we would we wouldn't get even that deep into it because it would be like 3 or 4 poems deep and pictures deep. And we'd end up talking about one of her neighbors and, a girlfriend that, she went to high school with in South Boston, Pinky, and how, all the boys loved Pinky. And then we would be on a tangent about Pinky for 45 minutes. But guess what? She was absolutely lit up and she was engaged and it was fun. And I learned all kinds of new things about her and all, things about her neighborhood and her experiences. So that brings me tremendous joy to know that it served its purpose. It did its job, and we can revisit other pages and other books on other visits, but really to just get the juices flowing and to get the conversation rolling is that's the goal. And I was at a meeting at the Alzheimer's Association. Actually, it was a training, and one of the facilitators said, we can't change the disease. We can't change the course of the disease right now, but we can give someone a positive experience. And that just stuck with me. I thought, at the very least, if we can focus on care and focus on person-centered care, retaining identity and retaining self-worth and dignity, not a repurposed children's book, not a book that is, too challenging, thus, frustrating and agitating. That's moving us in the wrong direction. So if we can do something that can give someone a positive experience and they feel successful, that's job one.
Yep. Moments of joy.
Moments of joy. Yeah.
That's, these will be, there's so many dementia friendly libraries that are out there too, that they will love to see your product and know about them. They've just been creeping up the last few years, and it's just been amazing to see. Our group in Roseville, Shoreview, and Maplewood launched one, and then Carol Jackson, the librarian there, put an article in their librarian journal, and then more have popped up, and a lot of them have gotten grants to expand. So I know there was one up north here. They got like a $90,000 grant to do, I believe it was 10 different libraries and set up resources. So and then they put together packets that people can sign out, so they don't have to dig through. They can just say, give me a dementia friendly packet. And
right.
They're off
That's
and
wonderful.
running and stuff. So that will be amazing. And it does give people great comfort to be able to have something to give people who are uncomfortable with this. That is just a natural thing to do. We've all read a story to our kids or somebody else, or read to ourselves. And again,
right.
If you don't want to read, you can just talk about the picture and, what does that bring about? It's, you can go so many different ways with this that
Right.
It makes it really not a stressful process, just a natural one, which is sweet. And I love the size, so they're not too small. So if someone still is able to hold on to the book, they
Right.
can physically hold on to it as well. And if not, then, you can hold on to it and show them, what all is there and talk. But yeah, just a really, really cool stuff. Then I thought, oh, big bands, that would be another one, or just music.
Oh yeah. Well, again, if you go on Amazon, there are books that, as you said, focus on big bands or, muscle cars or things, things of, the bygone era. And I encourage people to check those out. Of course, you and I, we have different needs and different predispositions and different tastes and different, like I said before, with my mother-in-law with the Mary Higgins Clark, it wouldn't be what I would go in, to check out from the library. But that's okay, because the assortment and the variety is what's so key. And doesn't this population deserve that too? Yep. The interest-based, the high interest texts that are manageable and that are really tailored to their needs, what they need now. So that I think is great. And I encourage anybody who wants to do something similar. I think it's great because this is growing exponentially. In the meantime, people search for a cure. I think that the most important thing we can do is in the here and now and in the lifetime of our loved ones is to provide them with the best of everything, the best of care, the best of support, and to really honor their intellect, which remains. And, you have real preferences. We all do. So if you prefer to sleep in, or if you prefer to, eat breakfast, first thing, or you prefer to take a nature walk, or you like to shower in the evening, those are all things that we need to respect and honor. And these books it's a part of that whole, mindset. It's saying, okay, you were a homemaker and you loved it and you want to talk about it and think about it. But right now it's hard for you to access that part of yourself. So we're going to help you do that with materials that appeal to you. It's pretty simple.
Well, and during COVID too, this is a beautiful gift to send to somebody who's feeling trapped in, if they're in a community setting, or if they're in their own, apartment, and still living independently. This is, because again, you can reminisce by yourself too. It doesn't have to be necessarily someone guiding you through. Same when, people will pull out, a family album and just, keep going through it and, keep calling on those memories. These books do the same thing. So if people want to get a hold of you, they can go to nanasbookseries.com. That's nanasbookseries.com. And they can email you at nanasbookseries@gmail.com, keeping it simple. And then you also have an Instagram account as well. It's
yes.
Nanas_ and then books.
Yes.
With that. And do you want to give out a phone number?
Sure.
So your phone number is 860-227-4218. That's 860-227-4218. And again, reach out to Laurette Klier. And Klier is not spelled like you think it is. It's Klier. But again, incredible job. I just major kudos for what you've accomplished.
Thank you, Lori. Coming from you, I really, that means that much more, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, this is so needed, and it's been fun to see more and more books come online. But and a lot of them are, telling stories of experience and stuff. But I love the engagement piece here, and not to put any of those others down, because I've got a couple of those books in me that just haven't popped out yet. But
call me, we'll work on it.
Shared experiences are so important, and what you've done through this collection is really done a shared experience on such a huge level. of pieces that are ingrained, and yet they're generalized enough and yet individualized because we each take things in differently and, have our own personal history with things. So the chatter can continue and those moments of joy. So thank you again so much. And
Thank you for having me.
Wish you continued success. For our listeners, I hope that you love these books as much as I do. I just think they are a fabulous, fabulous tool. And I hope that you will like, click, and share and spread the word of Nana's books. Until next time, have a great week. Bye now.
It's time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Hey everybody, Jared Sebesta here, host of Retire Repurposed. Now this podcast is about the non-financial parts of retirement, which many times can be even more challenging than the financial. We believe retirement is not the end, rather the beginning of what could be the most impactful, purposeful, and fulfilling season of a person's life. So don't retire, become repurposed. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.